Hello, my name is Casey Richardson, here for a Castanet Q&A with the candidate for the Similkameen-South Okanagan-West Kootenay riding, Linda Sankey, running with the NDP party. Linda, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Great. So to start off, a roughly 15-second pitch. Why are you running for Member of Parliament?
I think the reason I'm running now is because we have a really big election in front of us, and people I know and care about want to make sure the Conservatives don't get elected in this riding because our health care is seriously at risk and Canadians need free health care.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned here, this is a huge riding that encompasses cities like Penticton to small villages and rural areas. You live in Penticton.
I do.
What makes you qualified to represent the diverse and sometimes conflicting interests of the different rural and urban lifestyles in this riding?
My current experience includes having worked through the South Okanagan and Similkameen areas as part of my job for the last 22 years. So I'm really familiar with that area as well. So adding West Kootenays on there is new to me, but I've lived in this area my whole life. So I'm also familiar with it from just recreating in the area. And I think that people are very open in talking to me about what their needs are across the riding, whether that be mining, forestry, or aluminum and steel. We've got a really diverse economic group of businesses in the Okanagan, including agriculture and tourism. It's an interesting place to try and be the MP.
Absolutely. And this is riding in with its previous boundaries has been NDP since 2015. Your campaign has made it clear you feel in this riding, we vote NDP to defeat the Conservatives. Can you expand on what that means to you?
Yes, it does. I think we have had a history of being able to beat the Conservatives in this riding. The Liberals have not had a high showing in the last 3 to 4 elections in this riding. We haven't had a Liberal elected here since the early 1960s. So with that in mind, we probably are going to come out again having a higher percentage of the votes. For the Liberals to win in this riding, I would have to lose probably 90% of the voters that I have, and our calls and confirmations on doors and phone calls are holding really strong. I feel very confident we're going to come through on this one.
So are you concerned there will be a split vote for those centrist left voters?
Well, I think people are really facing a difficult decision. But I think in this riding, if people feel the need to ensure the Conservatives are not the government that gets in, then we have to vote centre together or progressives together so that we don't split that vote.
Mm-hmm. And impacts of climate change are a big issue in this riding. Outgoing MP Richard Cannings was a vocal advocate for a national wildfire fighting force that could be deployed where and when needed. Is this something you would support?
It absolutely is. And I attended an emergency management forum in Midway, BC just last week and spoke with professionals there about the emergencies that we've had across the riding, whether that be fire, flood, landslide. Lots of those things have already happened in our riding, and we already know what the effects are to people who live here. This is really important that we're able to communicate with one another during times of emergency. Parts of our riding do not have consistent Wi-Fi setups. They don't have even good landline reliability. Radio and newspaper online media are incredibly important here. I think that National Firefighting Force or National Emergency Response Force is really important. And this is what I've heard specifically from emergency management people this last week. They're able to manage small scale things, but when we have a widespread emergency, there are no additional resources close at hand like we've seen the last 2 summers, both in Kelowna and elsewhere in the country. We need to have a force that can come in, know what to do, be trained the same way across the country so that all of the first responders know exactly how to communicate with one another and not be trained in different ways in different regions so they can be on the ground, quick to respond.
Mm-hmm. And this riding encompasses multiple Indian bands. What specifically would you do to collaborate locally with those bands for their needs and advancement?
Well, I think the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission are incredibly important. And I've had conversations with folks about that. And I think what I can do is be a liaison with them, hear their needs, because realistically, it's their information that we have to bring forward to government to help change happen. So we've got a number of different bands. They often have many different angles on how they want to approach what their priorities are next. So I will listen, I'll participate, and I'll be present for them so that we can bring their message forward. But also, I've received endorsement from Grand Chief Stuart Phillips for me personally, who's asked me to be a representative, knowing that I have a strong social justice background. And I'm very honored that he's given me that endorsement. So I'm hoping that that helps the First Nations folks see me as a very good choice in this election.
Do you feel you already have a line of communication established, or is that something you're looking to work on?
I think communication is always something that we can grow, but I do have connections already.
Right. And food insecurity is an issue for many Canadians. In this riding, what specifically do you believe the federal government's role is in ensuring people here have access to affordable food?
I think one of the things that we can do is ensure that we have adequate food programs that are funded properly so we don't end up with shortages. A lot of our food banks are funded by donations from the public, and that's wonderful that people feel that they can give. But as our economy shifts and change through all of the tumultuous things that are happening outside of the forces of our Canadian government, we also have to ensure that Canadians have the things they need, like food. You know, being able to fund First Nations food hub, like in the Lower Similkameen Indian Band, they've created this wonderful 7-acre property there, and they've been successful for the last 2 years creating food right there in their own community. They need funding to be able to make those things happen. It's not even a lot of money, but if we can make things like that happen for Canadians across the country, it'll make a huge difference.
And many people in this riding are also struggling with affordable housing. What, if anything, should be the federal government's role in assisting provincial or municipal goals of meeting housing needs?
This is a big one, and it's close to my heart. In my current day job, I run 7 low-income housing properties, so I'm very familiar with the needs of Canadians that have a wide spectrum of housing needs, right from home buying, as well as having to rent, needing low-income housing, co-op housing, and housing for the homeless. The federal government can increase programs through Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Years ago, other brands of government took some of the funding away from this branch and made it difficult for new housing starts to happen across the country. My government will make sure we increase funding for that for the Canada Mortgage and Housing to have new programs, but we're also going to be looking at offering opportunities to build new housing on federally owned properties. I had some concerns from First Nations on this because they were concerned that the government would dictate where housing would go. That's not the intent at all. It's an opportunity for new housing starts, wherever that might be. And I think that includes offering support for new housing starts also on reserve.
All right. And turning to international affairs, specifically of an ongoing trade war between us and our American neighbors, yes. It seems to change frequently. In your role as MP of a border riding, what would you advocate for in Parliament to help local businesses who rely on cross-border business?
I think this is also a really important one, especially in small communities. We've got many of them along the border there. They really rely on that cross-border shopping. We have to find a way to break down these trade barriers with the United States. And I think we'll get there. It's a matter of time. And good negotiation is one of those ways. But I think supporting small communities and helping them adjust in the short term, you know, having new supply chains. I was talking to somebody the other day in a small community, and they were saying the closest community to them is actually Colville. It's not the town on the left or the right on the highway of where they live. And they really they need connections to those other cross-border communities because it makes affordability better for them. We have to be able to ensure that folks have also those good paying jobs so we have resiliency in those communities. And we've got lots of interesting, diverse businesses there that will help with that. I think the biggest thing we can do there is be the voice and ensure that government knows what's going on so we can respond to their needs.
Right. And part of this riding is heavily agriculture and rely on the Temporary Foreign Workers Program. What should the federal government be doing to make it easier for those workers to find employment and local businesses to employ them?
I think we have to look at a variety of different things here. So this topic also has something to do with immigration. And the Temporary Foreign Workers Program, although it's very helpful to agricultural businesses, it's not great for the workers themselves and pigeonholes people to have to stay with an employer, even when an employer is not always the best interest of the worker. The workers themselves need someone to support their workers' rights in that. So our government would try and find a way to ensure that programs for immigration were still there, but open up those opportunities so that workers, when they were in Canada as foreign workers, could have the ability to move back and forth between different businesses that are going on. So the temporary foreign workers, we want to be able to have them to move between agricultural businesses as well, because this gives them an opportunity to stay and move with the crop as it's coming along. They might not be stuck just with one type of fruit, as an example. They might be able to start with soft fruit and then stay later and do apples and other types of fruit later in the season. But if one grower doesn't have that variety, it gives that foreign worker less freedom as to where they can work. But we also know that those agriculture businesses really rely on having employees that can do that work. Finding Canadians to do it is a challenge for them often. We have to find a way that those agriculture businesses can be more successful, and so we can ensure that we've got our own food products here, so we aren't looking at purchasing them from another country and flooding our market here, because we have good quality products here. We need to get them out to people.
Mm-hmm. And do you find, in speaking with much of the agricultural community in this riding, what are they asking for?
They're asking for a variety of things. They want to have some more help with the packing issues that they've got going on. Some growers are interested in doing their own packing, and some need help with that. Part of that's a provincial support. Federally, we need to find supply chains across the country to make sure we can get that fruit and vegetables off to where it's needed within the country. It's difficult for a grower to have time to do their farming business and be their marketing side. So I think that's also another role that government can play.
All right. And the USA government has recent policy changes that have caused concern for the Two-Spirit LGBTQIA communities and some fear that those trends could spread north. Do you believe that the Canadian government has a role in policing gender affirmation?
I think the government has a role to play in hate prevention. We have a variety, a really diverse country with people of all different colors and stripes. We have to ensure that people have the rights of free expression, but we also have to ensure that people can live free of fear in our country and have acceptance where they go, regardless of what sexual orientation or skin color they might have. I think that's really important, and Canadians demand that. They want to see free expression at the same time that we have acceptance. Immigration is an important driver of our economy here, and if we aren't accepting of all people, it's going to make it more difficult for our economy to come out of this trade difficulty. We have to be able to put those people to work, whether they're 2S LGBTQ or whether they're immigrants. We have to find room for everyone in our economy.
Yeah. So with this, does the government then have, certain actions they should be doing?
Yes, and that would be including support for colleges and universities to be able to continue to support these gender-specific needs. Folks need to be careful how we talk about these things. People are really at risk. Young people in school, it's hard to grow up and not end up scarred when folks are faced with hate everywhere they turn. If we don't raise a community with people accepting, then we're just setting ourselves up for a hate-induced community. Nobody's looking for that, and everywhere I'm hearing unity is the answer.
All right. And to conclude, what is something you wish voters knew about you?
Let's see, this is a good question. I'm kind of an open book. There's not a lot that I think is secret, but I think my experience is really broad. I have an interest in everything that folks have going on in life. My current work helps people put their life back together after a major life change due to health conditions, where folks have to reimagine their finances, they have to reimagine their social structure, and they have to reimagine how to spend their days, whether they're able to work again or not. So my experience is helping people get all of those things put back together, and that's helped me explore things like transportation jobs for someone to become a long haul truck driver, or it could be to see someone getting involved in agriculture. Lots of different things really interest me, and this is also part of the reason why I think I'm well suited to take on the role of MP, because my experience has taken me in so many avenues where I've met different folks, whether they're in the healthcare sector or in the small business sector. I know lots of different folks and understand a variety of the challenges that people have. And I tend to be known to show up everywhere for all the different events, and I know you've seen me in places too. So I think I have a habit of being in places, and I have a real interest to do those things.
Great. Well, thank you again for taking time to speak with Castanet.
Thanks so much.
Right. Thanks for joining us. I'm Casey with Castanet News.